Socialists clear up the worldview. Conservative Party leads poll in Spain's upcoming election. The rights of gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender people have taken center stage ahead of Spain's July 23rd national election. Opinion polls predict Alberto Nunez Feijoo's Conservative People's Party will win the election after 4 years of coalition government by Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez's Socialists and the leftist Unidas Podemos. But Feijoo would likely need the support of the far-right Vox party to form a government. Vox has strongly opposed LGBTQ+Rights. Local elections in May paved the way for PP-Vox coalitions in several Spanish municipalities. Vox made headlines in May by hanging a sign from a Madrid building showing a hand dropping cards with symbols representing feminism, communism, the LGBTQ+ community, and Catalan independence into a rubbish bin. Both Vox and the PP have promised to take action against some pro-LGBTQ+ measures passed by the left-wing government. They have both pledged to change a self-determination law that came into force in March, allowing trans people over 16 to change their legal genders simply by informing the official registry, rather than undergoing 2 years of hormone treatment. Spain mostly respects LGBTQ+ rights, but activists say a PP-Vox government would roll back their rights.
Well, I think, we're definitely dealing with that situation here in America.
Right.
And you can see that around the world, it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And, I saw on Netflix, I'm doing a shout out to that, over the weekend, I saw El Dorado. And it talks about queer life in Germany before Hitler took power. And, it was a thriving LGBTQ community. And it started with little things like this. And, initially people didn't think that they had to really be concerned or take it seriously. And then we all know what happened.
Sure.
So, it's scary because when I was watching the chain of events, it kind of reminded me of what's going on here in Florida, And I mean, maybe I'm being a little dramatic, but still.
No, I think it's a valid point.
I don't think you're being dramatic at all. Another friend today recommended that I see this series, and they actually brought it up, the El Dorado.
Yes.
It is very close to what has happened here, and especially in Florida, where you see small changes and then they keep expanding. It's only going to be 3 to 8-year-olds that are going to be affected by it. Well, now we're going to make it to 12th grade.
Yes.
Now we're going to make it to high school. And all these little things aren't enough to jump on, but collectively, they change the narrative, and no one gets up in arms because it happens so small that you seem to be overreacting. And before you know it, everything's changed and it's too late to turn things back. So I think our advocacy is so important right now. And I agree with you.
Yeah.
They had a transgender center there. And the first sexual reassignment surgery was done in Germany ever in the world.
Wow.
And there's footage of actual transgender women, male to female, during that time in pictures. But they did a book burning.
Yeah.
And all that research went up in flames.
Yeah, I was going to say, to both your points, like, welcome to our world, Spain, right? We've seen this happen. And when we're talking about book banning in the United States right now, I mean, I don't see much of a difference, right? And I think, too, as we look at this, like, around the world, we have to be vigilant to protect everyone in the LGBTQ community and not just focus on what's happening here in America. So I'm glad to see this being
it's
reported
interesting. Spain with the Vox. The Vox is a small minority party in Spain, but they're just enough to give the other more moderate party, just like what's going on in Israel, by the way, just enough to be able to have a controlling government. But unfortunately, it's just like our Congress. The Speaker of the House becomes the Speaker of the House because the Marjorie Taylor Greene Matt Gaetz collective of about 20 radically conservative voices give themselves enough power to become important, because that's the only way he can become Speaker. That's what you're watching in the unification of Vox in Spain, and we're all living this grim fairy tales life.
Right.
We just saw it in this last week's here in Florida of the grim fairy tale of Little Red Riding Hood. Little Red Riding Hood, the wolf tries to convince Red that he's not the villain. He is the villain of the story.
Yeah.
Vox will be the villain of the Spain story if allowed to control. Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene will be the villain of the story. And the proof of it now in Florida is Governor Ron DeSantis. He is not going to ever again fool me or convince me that there is some moderating voice in his approach, that he's only trying to provide parental rights and protect children. That is not what he is doing.
No.
He proved that when he produces the commercial against Donald Trump of being radically supportive of trans,
right.
radically supportive of drag queens, and trying to convince everyone that Donald Trump is this uber LGBT rights activist. Those are all lies.
Yeah, they
coming
are.
from someone who is trying to seed and sell hate.
Yeah.
That is Matt Gaetz. That is Marjorie Taylor Greene. That is Boebert from Colorado. And in this story, that is Vox in Spain. They're all coming out of the same mold of this minority, radical, conservative thought. But it is something that all of us are going to have to face. And the question is, are we going to be Little Red Riding Hood and understand who the wolf is, the big bad wolf, or are we going to be eaten by them?
And also this past week I was up in Great Barrington and we went to a small regional theater for my birthday and we saw Cabaret. And the playbill before the show talked about Germany and the LGBT community. And, you know, when you look at Joel Grey, who played the original MC, if you will, of the show, it was about trans, it was about gay, you know, and all the clubs being open. And what happened when the Nazis were sitting in the room is slowly things were changing.
Yes.
And so like El Dorado, like what's happening in Spain, I think it's important to watch those shows again, to see Cabaret, to watch El Dorado, to follow the news, because we see something scary happening.
Well, don't quote me, but I think they said they had like 120 queer clubs in Berlin at the time before Hitler.
Yeah.
And there were actually officers that belonged to Hitler's party that were gay.
Oh.
And they were going to the clubs.
Yes.
And then, you know, when he took power, everything changed. All hell broke loose.
Yeah, but you're right. To your point, Glenn, like, we need to watch what's happening, right? And not think, oh, this one initiative is not that big of a deal, right? Because it's that Overton window, right? So Ron DeSantis tried it with that commercial and then pulled it because, you know, the reaction was too strong. He stepped a little too far outside the Overton window, so the window didn't move. He had to move. So we need to keep that pressure on people to make sure that we don't continue to see this perpetuate.
We are Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only live daily LGBTQ+ evening news show, brought to you from Happening Out Television Network. We operate in the same model of PBS and NPR, but for the LGBTQ+ community. We educate, inform, and entertain by supporting the 10 pillars of our LGBTQ+ community, with more than 100,000 a week watching us on Roku, Apple Television, and other channels. To keep the story going, we accept donations with 100% transparency. Stay updated and live authentically with Queer News Tonight.